TV Corner.
Hello, welcome to another edition of the Film Core TV Corner podcast. I'm Kirschenbaum in Los Angeles, joined by Armani Barron in Louisiana. Hello, Armani.
Hey guys, what's up?
And we're here to talk about episodes 6 and 7 of Lovecraft Country. One good episode and one bad episode of an intriguing series so far on HBO. So let's dive right into it. Episode 6, Meet Me in Daegu, is a flashback episode. We open in the Korean War circa 1949 in South Korea, where we meet Atticus's ex-girlfriend. But at this point in the story, she is not his girlfriend yet. Nursing student Gia. We soon discover that after her mother found out that Gia was being molested by her stepfather some years ago, she visited a shaman to possess her daughter with the kumiho, a succubus-esque nine-tailed fox spirit, to exact her homicidal revenge on the stepfather. And what happens is, like, fox tails sprout out of every orifice, including her eyeballs, and strangle the man that she's having sex with to death. And while that happens, she can capture all of the man's memories. Unfortunately, Gia paid a price for this. She needs to kill 100 men to be returned to humanity, not just the step-pops. So after Gia's best friend is murdered by Atticus for leaking wartime secrets to the communists in North Korea, Gia vows to seduce and kill Atticus, who would be her 100th victim, when she sees him recovering from injuries in her hospital. Then, when Gia unexpectedly falls for Atticus, she vows not to use her powers to execute him. Flash cut to winter 1950, so some time has elapsed, and Atticus and Gia are going strong. Then her kumiho powers pop up mid-coitus and threaten to kill Atticus. Though she is able to stop herself, Atticus flees. Kumiho finds herself haunted by a vision of Atticus's doomed future upon a possible return to the U.S. Gia and her mother visit the shaman and try to end the kumiho spell before Gia has claimed her 100th victim.
Let's cover this episode really quick before we move in. This to me has been the best episode of the series, honestly. Like, it tells a story in such a succinct way that I feel like a lot of the other ones haven't done, and the pacing was really spot on for this. Like, it felt like really like its own almost standalone movie, honestly. I was very surprised that it took her, I'm trying to think too logically into the whole process of her, like, finding 100 men to, like, murder in such a small town seems sort of suspicious. That, like, no one would have, like, they're not like in New York City, no one's, like, pointing out that, like, hey, she's going home with these guys and they're not coming back. Or, like, we're not seeing any sort of, like, missing people's posters or anything, because I feel like it's quite a lot for this to be a thing. But I really liked, I didn't really like, I liked I guess I did like, sorry. I love tragic, like, arcs like this, and, like, finding out that Gia was really, like, this spirit that was just possessing this vessel, and has go on this whole has to go through this whole process of, like, regaining her humanity through, like, such a, like, a violent act, is pretty hard to think about. And the fact that she also has to, like, endure sucking in all these people's memories as well and holding on to those, so she's really carrying, like, all this extra trauma aside from, like, the other horrible things that she has to do,
Yeah. It's pretty weird. I don't want to be too critical of the mom, but, like, wouldn't it have been easier to just kill the stepdad than to curse her daughter to have sex with and kill 100 men?
That's what you would think, but, as pointed out by Gia, we understand that the mother herself is a pretty weak person. So she got with a man who, like, picked her because of her weakness, and he knew that he could take advantage of her and thus, abuse her daughter. Simultaneously, we can assume that she does not have the strength to carry out this act herself. So again, she's just, like, instilling more trauma upon her daughter by not only having her endure the first thing with her stepfather, but also causing her to have to, like, now kill 100 other people. Like, the weight of that is pretty extreme as well. I do like how in this episode though we do see that like Atticus is not a good guy. I mean, he's kind of like a monster as well.
Right, he's been sort of brainwashed during the war as a soldier, and he's just executing a bunch of people to get to the spy, and then he executes the spy.
Yeah, I mean, he really didn't even hesitate. And like we're seeing through when Jiha can't control her Kumiho powers after, they've been dating for a while, we see not only his past but also his future, but we've seen that like how he tortured Jia's friend who she initially wanted to avenge. And that was, I mean, we can see that like Atticus has a very complicated past that is like in itself really entrenched in violence, not only from like his own like home upbringing, but also like through like what he endured during war.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I should clarify. He kills one person and then her friend, but his superior kills one or two other people that they suspect of being spies in their nursing unit. I think that's the total. But we are to assume that Atticus has committed similar horrible deeds in his life as a private during the Korean War.
Yeah, he definitely approached it like it wasn't his first rodeo.
Indeed, he's like a Terminator out there.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's cool. I agree that this is a really good episode, and it was very like self-contained, which I think really works for the series when they try to have episodes that have a resolution without too much sort of stuff that they throw into the larger narrative. But then sometimes it doesn't
Yeah.
work because like the second episode, I guess you could say it was kind of like that. It's like a whole episode about this very complicated storyline, and then it wraps up and kills off Tony Goldwyn and stuff right away. But I guess you could also say that it's setting something up for the main storyline, and thus, since it is doing that, it's different than a one-off episode, and it should be more. They should have given it more space to breathe because it's pretty important stuff relative to more throwaway episodes like this one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to your point, like it's just like this. We got all of the lore we needed to get in one go. We didn't have to like wait two to three other episodes to fully understand like what a Kumiho was. So like just like getting these facts like a very clean like we understand what the stakes are, we understand her motives, like we can easily like move forward. I loved like even the Judy Garland references. Who Judy Garland also suffered her own like different abuses while growing up in Hollywood. So like those like parallels between the two, but yeah, I think, I mean, they just really achieved this episode, like being able to keep it very like neat, tidy. There's a bow on it. It gives enough mystery to tie into like the bigger storyline with her like warning Atticus about him dying in the future. But in all honesty, it's almost like if we remove this episode, it doesn't like really impact a lot more of the story at this point.
All right, so next week's episode slash last week's episode is I Am, and it's another sort of tangent episode. It's mostly about Atticus's aunt, Hippolyta, stumbling upon a magical device that takes her into a dimension and time hopping holding cell within a spaceship that's not exactly a holding cell, according to the extraterrestrial that is definitely holding her there, Serafina. Serafina bequeaths Hippolyta with the ability to deep breath, to dance with Anita Baker's chorus line in 1920s Paris, to train to fight among powerful warriors in the more distant past, to visit her now dead husband George during the first moment we meet them in episode 1, and confront him about his not being properly supportive of her, and finally to move forward in time as a living incarnation of their daughter Diana's comic book superhero Orthea Blue, where she and George travel to a distant planet and mingle with green CGI aliens. How much of this is real and how much of this is imagined is anyone's guess, although it certainly seems to all be a construct and somewhat in her head. Atticus discovers that he may have familiar access to not just the missing 12 pages that his cousin Christina Braithwaite is seeking, but also the whole darn book, and travels to St. Louis to meet with a friend of his mother's to find out more. That's the Atticus storyline. And and then I didn't write this in my little sum up, but basically Letitia tries to bond with her sister after discovering that her sister's been staying away with Christina unbeknownst to Letitia on the north side. But yeah, so this episode's mostly about Hippolyta. It's pretty confusing and random. And I have to say, like, the thing about Hippolyta being Orthia Blue, her daughter's comic book superhero, was not something I gleaned from it, but I had to look it up in a review after the fact to figure out what that was. They did have a shot of the comic book at the end of the episode, but I wasn't sure if she manifested the comic book or what the heck that was, or where we'd seen the comic book before, or if we'd seen the comic book before. So, yeah, I was confused.
Yeah, I mean, with the Orthia Blue comic book, that was just like, actually, that's so her daughter used to write these comic books for George when he would go on his like guide travels. So it was like the next installment in that comic book series, which to that point, like we don't the way it was thrown it. Wait, let me back up in general with this episode. This episode was kind of all over the place, and I really appreciated that we centered centered Hippolyta in this, but the way it happened, I just feel like it just felt so disconnected, and we really needed to sort of like tie in what just happened in the episode before with Gia. And I just felt like we're, to your point, like they keep dropping in these things in previous episodes, and then it's weeks before we circle back to them, so it's kind of sort of hard to have the same like understanding what the stakes are and how things are connected, and like gathering the full weight of like what's happening in each episode and tying them in. So like it just feels weird that we got that great episode with Gia, which came from the episode with Atticus picking up the phone and talking to her and like leaving us on that cliffhanger, to us not going right back into the moment where Atticus is on the phone with her, is honestly, to me, dropping the ball from a narrative perspective. But going into episode 7, I just feel like I really enjoyed seeing Hippolyta get to enjoy these experiences, especially through experiences with other empowered Black women throughout history.
Right.
I also really loved her nude scene on the spaceship, because I realized I feel like we don't see a lot of like middle-aged nude bodies in like mainstream television shows.
Right.
So that in itself, I think, is like worth noting. But I mean, this episode overall, like I just don't know what we're supposed to be really taking away from it.
Yeah, they had like the narration over the end when she's Orthia Blue, but I don't know. It all felt sort of abstract. I felt like I was missing something, but I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. We should. I guess there are 10 episodes, right? So maybe it all will be explained later.
Yeah. I mean, I did appreciate that they're saying that, like, in her own way, she was really limited by our current society, by having to fit into like this cookie cutter box to be more palatable, especially as not only a woman but as a Black woman, which is like a very common and important theme to keep addressing within the show. But I feel like in the grand scheme of things, like we didn't get anything extra towards the entire plot. Or, I mean, this was like basically a throwaway episode, in my opinion, when we just had what was essentially sort of a throwaway episode.
Yeah, like the episode before was a nice example of a throwaway episode that tied into the bigger plot and sort of explained this prior relationship that had been hinted at, and it felt like it could be looped back into the whole thing. But the IM episode felt more like a detour, and it was unclear how it tied in or why it tied in or what that time jumping device was, or what the point of her, or the time and dimension jumping device, and if she actually did jump time and dimensions, or if it was all in her head, sort of like a hallucination put upon her by these aliens, what the aliens wanted, how real they were at all, what they have to do with anything, or more likely, I feel like it has nothing to do with anything. It's just like another adventure in this magical science fiction horror fantasy world.
Yeah, I mean, I think on that note too, like I think it like this episode like required, I feel like, just too much work, which I really don't mind in shows when it's done well. Like I just feel like, for example, like putting all the time and space coordinates in the bottom left hand of the screen is like an like obvious tricks to make people do more work into digging into an episode. To me, just feels cheap, and I didn't appreciate it. Yeah, like what do we do? Like, why are you adding this level of confusion for us? I mean, I wish this episode had been done differently, or had been like woven better into the story. I think the only takeaway we got from this was that Atticus got a copy of Lovecraft Country from an alternate dimension, so maybe he's gonna have like more of like sort of like understand what's gonna happen in the future. But again, we're left on some sort of another like weird unanswered cliffhanger, so it's hard to know how this is gonna tie into the grand scheme of everything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess we'll find out, or maybe we won't. I don't know. Because there've been a few episodes where like they don't explain what happens in the subsequent couple of episodes, and then they sort of leak some tie-in stuff later on, like several episodes later, to the point where you don't remember why they're telling you this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those shows where you feel like maybe it would have actually been better if it had just been like a bingeable show where you could watch all 10 episodes in quick succession.
Yes.
With all the space of the weekly version, you forget some stuff.
Yes, and there's like I don't know if you guys have seen Dark out there, but that's an example of a bingeable show where I feel like it's very complicated, and I don't know how it would stand up to having a week-long gap between some of the episodes. Just for the sake of like remembering all these small details and understanding how the timeline ties back into everything. This is one where I feel like in a vacuum of just like watching all of Lovecraft, like everything would make a lot more sense. But because we keep jumping around with all these bottle episodes, and we still don't have a lot of like questions from episode 1 answered, and I understand about like, having a full season mystery, but in a way that's like sort of like we're not connected to the initial question that was even asked. I think just isn't the best storytelling strategy to go with this show.
Yeah, it's like, and with that, it was weird too because they showed her or him turning into her. No, her turning into him at one point, a couple episodes before they revealed who it was. So we sort of knew, but didn't totally know, and then we found out for sure. So it was anticlimactic by the time we found out, but it was also just sort of a random, confusing blip when they first showed it to us. So they robbed us of like it being exciting because we already saw it coming because we'd literally seen it before, but not quite, but almost. So I don't know. It was just weird, but yeah, I don't know. It's this show's kind of erratic, but it's definitely interesting, and I'm intrigued to see what happens next week.
Yeah, I mean, I think this show is important to have, and I don't think it needs to be like necessarily like some sort of like it is a masterpiece in its own right. I think just like as far as like breaking into the genre in the way that it is. And maybe the next 3 episodes will change the trajectory of like how I feel about how the writing has been thus far. But I mean, overall, like I have been enjoying it. I think it's really fun, and I'm interested to see like where it goes.
Yeah, it's not like it owes us anything, I guess. Like it's like a sort of different experience, so we'll just have to keep keeping up with it.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. I can't really say like what predictions you have for next week because I don't know. I have no idea where this goes.
If I were to say my predictions right off the bat, it's like gonna be, I really actually don't know.
Yeah,
Ruby is gonna continue to work for Christina in the future. I'm gonna bet that.
okay. Yeah, it makes sense. Will they continue to hook up? Will it be as themselves or as like their doppelgangers?
I really hope so. Actually, that they like continue their relationship, even though we know like how kind of like weird it is. It is. And I feel like Ruby's gonna once again take that potion and continue to use like the powers of being a white woman to her advantage. And I feel like Atticus and Letty are gonna find out pretty soon. A twist I would love actually is if Atticus or Letty actually killed Ruby in her white form and then realized it was her later.
Interesting. My thing is, like, why is Christine doing this? Like, what are her goals with it? Is it just to share something with Ruby, or? But it seems like she also wants Ruby to get the pages.
Yeah, I think she just needs an in into the house, and Ruby's there, and maybe she's sort of into the fact that like Ruby understands what it's like to be disadvantaged.
Right.
In society, even though they are disadvantaged in like very different scopes. But Christina is also like just like thirst for power. Again, we don't know enough about the organization that she's a part of to care. Like, she seems pretty powerful already. I don't know what else she wants really. So
Yeah, I guess we'll have to find out because yeah, it's unclear. You think like I don't quite understand too Christina hinted that Ruby's family has like a deep connection to the books, but like Ruby is not related to Atticus. So does that mean Ruby and Atticus's families are tied into the household? And then we also saw that shot of Letitia, having the dream of leaving the house that was burning, and Letitia was pregnant. Like,
oh yeah, I guess we didn't talk about Letty's pregnancy, which again, because the way this show's been written, I feel like again, what should have been like a oh my god moment, which is sort of like it felt very obvious, and like we waited too long to get here.
Yeah, and then it makes sense because then like their family, like Ruby's kind of family with Atticus, in that her sister's pregnant with Atticus. Well, anyway, I guess we'll maybe find out next week, or maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not.
And by next week, I mean 3 days from now.
Yes, that's true. Okay, we're gonna find out pretty soon.
Indeed. All right, well, I guess that's all I have. Thanks, Armani, for throwing down, and hopefully this podcast will go up before episode 8 is upon us.
Yeah, hopefully so.
TV Corner.